This center punch that I'm using is a hammerless punch. Now the moment of truth. See how much rust is underneath this. Hey everyone, on this episode of Rec to Resto, I'm back working on the HG ute behind me. Got a few weeks until I have to get this ute up to the blasters. So always a good idea if you're getting an old car blasted is if you can make it as accessible as possible to the blasters, you'll get a much better job. So if you can see areas that you know there's rust underneath it, if you leave those panels on, it's very hard for the blaster to get in there and get them back to bare metal and coat them in epoxy. One of the really good examples of that is with HKTG sedans, utes, wagons, Maras, everything, is it's really common for them to rust out in this top plenum section. So the windows leak and then the water just gets in underneath them and they pretty well rust from the inside out. As you can see, the ute is no exception to that. There's holes the whole way through this plenum. It's normally a sure bet that if you've got rust on the outside, you're going to have rust on the inside of the plenum. I'm going to show you how to unpick this entire plenum section. At least then when it gets blasted, this whole area underneath will get taken right back to bare metal and coated in epoxy. Before this panel goes back on, all of the inside of the plenum will get done in satin black just to finish it off. So yeah, if you can strip these out, it's always a better thing to do when you're doing these cars. All right, follow along. I'll make a start. So I've got to mark out where all the spot welds are. I've already hit it with the wire wheel to take it back to bare metal. It's much easier to see where all the spot welds are. Normally what I do is I just go along with the Sharpie and I just put a dot in the center of where all the spot welds are. And then I'll go along and center punch them. And then yeah, I'll just work my way along with the spot weld drill bit. And you only want to drill through the top layer, you don't want to go the whole way through. Areas like this bottom part of the windscreen is going to get replaced, so it's quite hard to see exactly where these spot welds are. So I'll show you a little trick just with a hammer and a chisel, and you'll be able to see exactly where they are. These sections will be getting remade, so I'll pretty well go from where the steel's good down, and then there'll be a few sections. I might even do the whole thing as one, but I'll see how I go. But yeah, so this edge here isn't as important because it's going to get replaced. But these edges down here, you want to try and keep them as good as possible because when you go to weld it back on, where you drilled the spot welds out, that acts as a locating tool so it all goes back on in the same spot. All right, I'll get set up and I'll start drilling all these spot welds. The spot weld drill bits that I use, I don't use just a normal drill bit. I actually use one of these things. So I actually went and showered myself a brand new one because the ones that I've got were getting pretty old. You can sharpen them, but I figured for this job, I'll start with a freshie. These are about 30 bucks. You can get them from most tool shops. There is quite a few different kinds you can use, but I've always had pretty good success with these ones. So the beauty with these is when you can probably see that, they're not as pointy. So they've got the middle bit when you spot weld, or when you center punch them, that's what locates it. But these will only drill out the top panel. So if you use a normal drill bit, it wants to go through multiple layers. But the beauty with these ones is you just take your time and you'll just get through the top layer and it makes it a lot easier to weld back on. If you drill the whole way through, it's a lot harder to weld on after the fact because you've got to basically spot those holes up. If you've only got to spot the top panel back onto the original steel underneath, it's quite a quick and easy job to do. So I'll put this one in the drill, I'll get some center punch marks in and I'll make a start. This center punch that I'm using is a hammerless punch. So it's got a spring mechanism inside it. So you basically just put weight down with your hand and it shoots the pin forwards. So if you've got a lot of, they don't leave as big a punch as what one with a hammer does, but it's more than enough for this sort of stuff. Right, I'll make a start with this side I can reach, and then when I'm ready to do the other side, I can just roll the body over.
Never break, always fight, never quit.
When I use the drill, I don't keep it straight. I normally start it off and then I just sort of walk it around and it goes through a lot easier that way. And there's a little bit of rust in between the skins, you can actually see that rust just as you hit that layer, it sort of puffs up, so you know you've actually gone through.
Right, play the game, win it like, have no shame, waste no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, the main climb, the only way, to win it like, I never miss that stack, taking big swings, hand to the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag, cause I sing what I mean, and I bring it to the mad light, ain't got time to kill, I got time to feel, I took the red pill, I know life's short, so I wanna live real, but how's it supposed to feel?
That's the majority of the spot welds all drilled out now. So in the corner here from factory, they've just got a MIG weld that follows this line around, and it's not welded the whole way around. Normally what I do is I just slice it next to that weld, up and around next to that weld. There's a weld here and down and in. So basically just slice it through here and here, and then when it goes back on, this will just get re-welded through here, flushed off. That'll be job done. So once I've got these ones here sliced with the grinder, I just work my way around with the hammer, and I've got an old wood chisel that I've ground up that I don't really care if I damage, so I'll just use that wood chisel to go along this skin here, and I just gently tap it and follow my way along. If I've missed any of the spot welds, you can see straight away because it starts to peel up. This section the whole way through here, I'm going to remake. So instead of trying to drill out spot welds that you can't actually see because it's so rusted, I'm just going to cut this through here with the grinder, and then once this panel's removed, I can get in and clean that face up quite easily. All right, I'll get the grinder out and I'll start cutting through these ones. A tool that's very handy in these situations where you can't quite get the grinder in is just one of these little Dremels with little cut-off wheels. They work really, really well. The trick is just you just don't put too much pressure on the blade. Got my old dodgy wood chisel here. It was pretty beaten up, so I just hit it on the grinder and put the edge back on it. You can just get the chisel.
They wanna say my name, but they holding back. They wanna say they hate, but they know it's cap. I ain't playing no games, I just do that's fact. And I don't feel no shame, it's a mood you lack. I go crazy, nah, but I ain't lazy. Track after track, I work on the shit daily. Pass me the jack, right as fuel, got me hazy. About to unpack.
There's a spot weld in this corner hiding under all this rust, so it's quite hard to see exactly where it is. When you're using the hammer and chisel, you can chisel up to it where it basically this chisel stops. You know there's a spot weld there. So this is this bit that's really rusty. So this is where I'm going to just slice it through with the grinder. I'll probably pick it up where these other spot welds are. All right, I'll get this body rolled over and I'll do the same thing on that side.
I've got visions in my head, like memories after death. To be a legend instead of something you can forget. I'm living up every breath, I'd rather lead than be led. I'll feel this. When
you're removing these panels, it's always a good idea before you completely get it off. Obviously, you're going to bend the panel by doing this, but just flatten it out again before you actually take it off.
With every word that I said.
Now the moment of truth. See how much rust is underneath this. To be honest, it's not as bad as I thought. I was expecting a big hole in here, but it's actually pretty good. So at least with having all this open now, this can all get treated, because these are, you can see from factory, they just get a bit of paint blown through here, but this is mainly just bare metal. So the good thing about doing it now, doing it properly, is we can treat all this, we can get it painted. There's a broken bolt in this wiper pivot, so it's much easier to fix all that while I've got this apart. And yeah, I can basically trim all this up now, get this edge nice, and then once we're ready to put this back on, this will all get plug welded back on here again. So I'm actually pretty impressed with how the inside of this plenum is looking. I was expecting it to be pretty rusted out, but it's got a little bit of surface rust on it. But it'll clean up really, really good. And it will give us a chance to get it all painted inside before we put it back on. The upper plenum cover, that's a different story. As you can see, there's a lot of daylight that shouldn't be coming through it. So I've got to fab up a few panels for this. So this one here is easy. It's just got a whole lot of shrink the inside and stretch the outside to make that piece. And then these ones here, I'll probably just make it in a few sections and get this panel all fixed up. So that'll be down the track, but we'll get this body sorted out. Before I take it to the blasters, this bit that's still rusted on top, I'll get that removed. So I'll just clean that up with the flapper disc on the grinder and then pop it off with the chisel. But yeah, that is how you remove the plenum top on a HKTG Holden. Pretty simple job to do. That took me less than an hour by the time I drilled all the spot welds out and popped it out. But it's pretty cheap insurance. Like if you're going to this extent with a resto, it makes sense to do it properly. It's not that much extra work, but it's going to give you a lot better result, because if you get all the rest of the car done and you leave little bits of rust inside here, which are going to come back, it's only going to bite you down the track. So do it once, do it right. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. It's obviously another little how-to video. If you got any other questions or any other things you want to know how to do on an old Holden like this, leave it in the comments below. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.